Before Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds brought the best little whorehouse in Texas to the big screen, you got to go back to the 1970s when a Houston, Texas reporter helped bring the real one down.
My next guest is a flamboyant and highly effective consumer advocate for Channel 13 in Houston, Texas, whose most famous expose involved a chicken ranch. Let's take a look at him in action now. Watch the monitors, if you will.
Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News. Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News. Marvin Zindler, Eyewitness News.
And now, please welcome Marvin Zindler. The big story that I guess got you some national attention is the one we're going to talk about in a minute, about the whorehouse in Texas there. Is that right?
Well, the whorehouse in Texas has become a kind of a household word. I never heard that word before on television until
What do you mean? Just you never heard whorehouse before on television?
Well, we've always heard it as bawdy house or a house of prostitution, but never whorehouse.
Oh, really? Well, maybe you can't say whorehouse.
I've just recently been able to say it without being embarrassed.
Oh, really? It embarrasses you to say? Try it once.
Whorehouse.
There you go.
Yep, Marvin Zindler. And if you're from Texas like me, you already know where I'm going with this one. The Chicken Ranch. It was a real brothel in Grange, Texas, that had been operating there in some form since the 1840s, and it was no secret. Everybody knew about it. The town knew, the sheriff knew. The sheriff even had a direct phone line where the women who worked there would pass information back to him that they'd picked up in pillow talk from their customers about local crimes. And then in 1973, Marvin Zindler gets involved. And Marvin Zindler's not new to investigating crime. He'd been a crime reporter for radio. Then he spends 10 years with the Harris County Sheriff's Department investigating fraud, tracking fugitives. But he'd only been with Channel 13 for 7 months when he does a week-long expose on the Chicken Ranch. And this story causes such a stir that the governor of Texas steps in and tells the sheriff to shut it down. And the sheriff is fit to be tied. So much so that when Marvin Zindler goes back to LaGrange a year later, the sheriff yanks him out of his car, beats him up, breaks 2 of his ribs, yanks off his toupee, and stomps on it in the middle of the street. So in true Texas fashion, Marvin pops the sheriff with a $3 million lawsuit. And then years later, Marvin actually told the story.
So get out of here, you goddamn wig-wearing, city-fied son of a... You know, I did the Chicken Ranch story nearly 12 years ago. I remember it vividly. And the sheriff didn't push me in the fish pond. He broke my ribs.
The best little whorehouse in Texas with Burt Reynolds and Dolly Parton. Sunday night at 8 on 13.
But the Chicken Ranch is done. And if LaGrange sounds familiar...
Rumors spreading round in that Texas town about the shack outside the Grange. And you know what I'm talking about. Just let me know if you wanna go to that home out on the range. They got a lot of nice girls.
Yeah, that LaGrange. ZZ Top actually wrote that song about the Chicken Ranch at around the same time that Marvin was trying to take the place down. Look at the timing. The album comes out July 1973, and the Chicken Ranch is shut down August 1st. We actually just lost Frank Beard, ZZ Top's drummer, last week. RIP to a Texas legend. But the Chicken Ranch is about to get even more famous. It becomes a Broadway musical, and then in 1982, Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds bring the best little whorehouse in Texas to the big screen. They actually filmed a lot of it right here in Texas. And they filmed inside the Texas State Capitol in Austin, which was actually the first movie ever allowed to be filmed inside. And the world premiere was at the Paramount Theater in Austin in 1982. But there's one more thing about this movie that sent me down a completely different rabbit hole.
And I will always love you. I will always love you.
Now, Dolly had originally written the song in 1973, and it went number 1 in 1974, and then
Elvis wanted to record it and had planned to, had it worked up for his session or was planning to come to Nashville. They had invited me down to the session if I wanted to come. And then the day or so before, Colonel Tom called me and said, now you do know we don't record anything with Elvis unless we get half the publishing. And I'd already had number 1 hit. It was already my copyright. And I said, no, because, you know, when you're a writer and when you're a publisher, you know, your copyrights are, that's like what you're going to leave for your family or for your own people. So I said, no, I can't give you half of it. He said, well, then we can't do it. I just said, I just had to make a business decision. He didn't do it, though.
Then she re-recorded it for the best little whorehouse in Texas, and it goes number 1 again. 10 years later, Kevin Costner brings the song to Whitney Houston for The Bodyguard. Whitney records it, and the song does 14 weeks at number 1.
I thought my heart was going to, was going to bust when I first heard it. In fact, I heard it on the radio. I was still driving at the time. I was driving from my office downtown to my house out in Brentwood, which is probably a 30-minute drive. And I just had the radio on, and all of a sudden I just heard that a cappella part. And I was listening. It was like one of those things. I thought, what is that? And it was like, should stay, because I didn't know she had recorded it. I knew they had asked me about it.
You didn't know?
And I had no idea that they had done it.
Yeah.
Somebody had called to say they might do it in a movie, but I hadn't heard it. They hadn't sent me anything. And then when I thought, that's my song. And then when it went into, I almost wrecked the car. I had to pull over and, to listen to it. But it was like somebody had just poured hot water on me. It was just the most incredible feeling you can imagine. You can imagine as big as that was and as beautiful as that was and as great as she sang that and with all that music and that my little simple song.
Houston's version alone made Dolly $10 million in the 90s. And Dolly would joke that she'd made enough money off of that to buy Graceland if she wanted to. But of course, she didn't. Instead, with that money, Dolly invested in a predominantly black neighborhood in Nashville, and she called that property the house that Whitney built.
I would forever be attached to her, connected to her because of that song.
Well, you know me better than I
Ed
do.
Earl, I believe the thing for you to do is just to put this whole thing behind you just as quick as you can. I've made a little money, I've laughed some, I've danced to the music. It's just time to pay the fiddler, that's all. If I should stay, well, I would only be in your way. And so